Summer. We had a good run. But the harsh realities of failing sunlight, falling temperatures, and the literal end of crops signals one thing: fall planting. More than any other season, with that clock ticking in the fall, starter plants become the stars of the show. Today, let's look at how, when, and why to get those fall starter plants going so that your autumn garden reaches its full potential. Spring preparation and getting ready for the season feels like almost a lifetime ago. And for some crops, it is. Back then, though, we approached the new growing year with such wide-eyed enthusiasm, it couldn't help but be successful. We had all the time in the world, and the days were getting longer and warmer, not colder and shorter. And while spring starter plants got us that head start advantage, in most cases, it was a luxury, not a requirement. For some people, August and September simply bring a reprieve from that extreme summer heat. But for many of us, it's a signal, a timestamp, if you will, of the impending cold not far away. You know, that looming frost date that, if severe enough, spells the end of our growing season for the year. Amazingly, there's a whole category of plants that not only grows during this post-summer cool down, but they actually prefer it and they thrive. Of course, as with all gardening, there's a couple of problems. These plants tend to germinate better in the warmer weather, like right now, and they sometimes have a longer growing window than what is allowed for when the summer crops finally come out. So what can we do? If only there was a way we could start them somewhere else early, get them to an advanced state so that when the summer crops are finally cut down, we could plant them without missing a beat. If you have empty beds or spare pots, maybe you've already started your fall garden. Things such as beets, carrots, and even these peas here can be direct sown up to around 6 weeks before your first fall frost date. No problem. But what is a frost date? Maybe this is the first time you're hearing that term. Well, I did an entire video on frost dates not that long ago. But the short of it is, we have 2 frost dates a year that we as growers are interested in. The last spring frost date, where we put winter behind us and say no more freezing nights, and the first fall frost date, where the chill returns, officially ending our summer endeavors. Get these guys seeded and into the ground early enough before that fall date, and they can reward you with some fantastic results. Fall starters, however, aren't any different or more difficult than those that we do in the spring. Typically, they're members of the Brassica family, and I'll give my full list of suggested fall starters at the end of the video. Now, fall plants are easy to get going and are pretty undemanding. And there's no easier way to show you how than just to show you how. Here's a montage recap of how I start every broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprout, Swiss chard, or any fall plant that isn't direct seeded. Seeding your fall starters, like any other plant, begins with the soil. Soils designed specifically for seed germination should always be used. They're light, airy, well-drained, relatively low in nutrients, and tend not to compact when they're dried out. For containers, you can use just about anything that holds soil and drains water. But if you're getting serious about gardening and you're doing more than just a few plants, professional plug trays are a must. But if you're just doing a few plants, the 6-cell mini trays, they're great too. And hey, in a pinch, you can even make your own biodegradable pots using just paper towel rolls. Get creative, the plants won't mind. Whatever container style you use, soak your soil from below for about 2 hours before planting. Actual seeding is quite easy. Make a hole in the center of each plug or pot, the same depth that is recommended for seeding that plant. It's usually found in the package. Place 1 seed per hole, methodically working your way through. Close up the holes by simply pinching them with your fingers. Easy peasy. Place a clear dome over the seeds to trap in the moisture for ideal germination conditions. For smaller setups, a Tupperware lid or even a piece of clear plastic works great too. Around a week later, at 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, your fall plants will begin to emerge. Amazing to see every time, and it's kind of nice to be sprouting seedlings at the end of the summer again. To me, it feels like a reminiscing homage to spring. Give the plants as much light as possible, up to 14 to 16 hours a day, and cut back on the heat, 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit tops. Even still, they're gonna get unruly pretty fast. Even if you single seeded the trays, somehow you're gonna get a wild forest of seedlings. It happens every time. Once the first true leaves emerge, thin each pot or cell to a single plant. As always, leave the strongest one. Once thinned, they're on their way, and they grow fast. As your planting date gets closer and closer, begin to harden off the plants for a few hours a day outside. You need to get them acclimated to outdoor life. Fall starters can almost never be planted too early. As long as it's not so early that they run the risk of bolting due to summer heat, or becoming pot bound by staying in their starter pots for too long. You're going to want to start your fall plants mid-summer. There is a ticking clock, however, and if you start them too late, you could miss your chance at a window for a viable crop. Many autumn plants, such as the kales and chards and lettuces and collard greens, are fine because they'll grow right through the early winter and are only harvested for their leaves. But for those plants with fruiting bodies, such as broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts, well, they need to be started at least 10 to 14 weeks before your first fall frost date. They need to advance in age and size to have any chance at a viable fruiting head before the true winter hits. So for me personally, I have 2 hard dates for my fall starters. For leafy crops such as kale, lettuce, and collards, I start them at least 8 weeks before the fall frost date and then get them planted at least 2 weeks before that date. For the heavy hitters like broccoli and cauliflower, I start them no later than 10 weeks before that first fall frost, getting them into the ground at least a month before the frost begins. Keep in mind that even though I live in Canada, I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I enjoy pretty mild winters and a gradual easing of the nighttime temperatures. If you're more continental and you have harsher winters that come on faster, plan accordingly. Get those seeds out at the earlier range rather than later. Fall is an amazing time to grow. Less pressure, less pests, cooler, more enjoyable weather, and almost a sense of every crop just being a bonus. Fall starters make it even easier to achieve this and allow you to keep that garden groove going just a little bit longer. Hey, thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate the support more than you know. And if you're getting value from these videos, please like and share them to spread the word and help your fellow gardener to grow better.